Good afternoon, Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to join you as we chart pathways to bring us closer to solving the multiple challenges facing us as human family. I'm pleased to offer a humble contribution on how investments in children and women can and must be the keys to unlocking a brighter future for us and for generations to come. It is no secret that we are dismally off track to meet the SDGs by 2030. We can and must course correct. We have no other guiding agenda to transform our societies and communities based on principles of equality, sustainability, and social justice. We face a multiplicity of crises. So I propose we use this moment of crisis as an opportunity to reset our priorities, renew our focus and determination, and to use our knowledge, resources, and innovative technologies to reimagine our path forward. The resources are available. We just need better management of this capital and channel it to where it will have the most impact. For example, from a least development country perspective, let's talk of nutrition. When nutrition is coupled with immunizations and quality education are great equalizers. We must create a world where every single child is saved from stunting, is afforded a solid foundational start in life to compete in the economies of tomorrow on equal footing. If we apply the resources at our disposal to meet these challenges, in a generation, we can ensure that no one really is left behind. It is possible to turn around the scourge of inequity and meet the global goals when we leverage the power of equality for all. Recognizing the importance of nutrition as a driver of achieving a number of SDGs, the Graça Machel Trust has engaged in nutrition advocacy to help end hunger and stunting, achieve food security, improve health outcomes, and promote sustainable agriculture. I share this very modest example of effective advocacy because it is a proof that progress can be achieved. In partnership with governments, private sector, and valued civil society partners across East and Southern Africa, with the support of the Gates Foundation, we engaged governments to create budget lines for nutrition in the national plans and consider it as an investment priority at local, national, regional, and global levels. There are no better investments we can make to break cycles of poverty and secure a bright future for our nations than to ensure our children, particularly the girl child, are adequately nourished and educated. As we debated the SDGs this afternoon, I firmly maintain that SDG 5, which calls for the, I quote, the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, unquote, is not only an imperative to elevate us as a human race, but it is a prerequisite for the achievement of all other goals. The world over, we are disadvantaging ourselves by not allowing women to take their rightful place as vibrant contributors to our societies and economies. Gender neglect in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, costs the region approximately $95 billion annually. According to the McKinsey Global Institute report in 2019, increasing gender equality and women's empowerment could bolster sub-Saharan economies by over $300 billion by 2025. We cannot deny the data. It makes dollars a sense to invest in women. For example, there is a significant yet untapped role of women in agribusiness, and it must play to address malnutrition and hunger as well as food insecurity. It is an imperative to increase women's roles in targeted agricultural value chains, develop new technologies to disrupt the sector, and propel millions of women's agricultural activities beyond subsistence farming into viable businesses. Women can bring us closer to achieve SDG 2, which, I quote, seeks to end hunger and malnutrition, ensure access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food, unquote. This is particularly critical amid times like this, where in every corner of the world, we are facing astounding food and energy shortages, mounting inflation, and devastating shocks of climate change. Governments must adequately prioritize spending on nutrition and other crucial areas of development. There is overwhelming evidence of their importance to human capital development, health and well-being, productivity and economic growth, and of course, their relevance in achieving the SDGs. Women are key drivers of progress. Countries in Scandinavia, for example, have shown us that in just one generation, empowering women and investing in gender equality and human development has boosted economic and social progress and created fairer, more equal societies grounded in social justice. Investment in girls and women must keep pace with the magnitude and severity of challenges we face. A shamefully small fraction of the international community, only 26% of countries have a comprehensive system to track gender budget allocations. I know there are key decision makers in this room today. So I challenge you to demonstrate the necessary political will and inject the resources required into gender equality if you wish to stand any chance at boosting economic growth, human development indicators, and create peaceful communities of equity and prosperity. We have to be bold in the design of new systems, technologies, and practices centered around women and their leadership. This is a surefire compass in charting our future to a healthier, more equitable, more sustainable, and more prosperous world. The SDGs remain within our grasp in one generation. And as the elders, we will keep being the voice of the most vulnerable. I thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to one of our exciting afternoon sessions on the first day, official day of the Government Summit and its 10th anniversary. How wonderful to have you with us, Professor Jeffrey. And if you may allow me, ladies and gentlemen, I'd quickly introduce myself. My name is Hessa Buhumaid. I'm the Minister of State in the United Arab Emirates. And with you today, and with all of us today, is Professor Jeffrey Sachs, President of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. We would like to talk directly with His Excellency about equalities, driving harmonious actions towards a peaceful and a just world. Welcome, everyone, and I really deeply wish that you had a fruitful morning, afternoon, and it's lovely to see a lot of you at this time of the day, while we still have a few hours of the first day. If you may allow me, Professor, to start with the first question, if I may. To create a harmonious and peaceful world, as the title is very clear to everyone, what actions can be undertaken to promote equality in all of its forms, including economic, social, and political equality?
First, let me thank you and your government for bringing us together again. It's always wonderful to be at the World Government Summit, and I know how hard your government is working for success, not only in the Emirates, but worldwide, so I really appreciate that. Well, we don't live in a time of equality or peace right now, so it's a disconcerting time, and I think we could see what we should be doing, but it's not what we are doing. We're perhaps at a moment of peak inequality in the world. The rich are now so rich you can't even count how rich they are. And we're talking about trillions of dollars in the hands of a few people. And yet the poverty continues in the midst of all of this. We don't have harmony in the world. We're probably at peak geopolitical tension for at least any time since the end of the Cold War, but I think arguably since actually the peak of the Cold War 60 years ago. This is the worst moment I recall in terms of tensions. I just got the most recent magazine of foreign affairs, it purports to be a thought journal. It's not a thought journal. Every article was about how can the US maintain its power. Not one article about how can the US solve any problems. Not one. So this is the problem, that you have adults behaving like 5-year-olds, and you have 5-year-olds that would like to grow up and not be hurt in the process. And that's what we're dealing with. It's very simple.
Well, Professor, let me tell you by what I have heard at 8 a.m. this morning from other government officials from around the world. Something exactly and very similar to what you have been commenting right now. The world right now requires people coming, and specifically, like genuinely people, not even leaders, not governments, but people coming together to ensure that we have a safer, more sustainable world. And probably here today and during these sessions, we're mainly talking about SDGs and how important they are, and how can we ensure we've got government commitments towards them. Well, we are really looking forward towards September's general meeting and seeing what will happen by then, if we will really have to go back and reshape or continue with the commitment. I thank you again for the comments on the first question. If you may allow me, Professor, I
hope you dare to ask me a second question. I apologize.
The fire on those questions keep on going, and we'd love to hear more and more. I want to know and hear from you, Professor, what's your intake on what was happening during COVID? But not only that, we have a very tragic recent natural disaster that happened 4 to 5 days back in both Turkey and Syria. what are the best practices that the world can really learn to encourage a more equal and a more just for the whole humanity?
Look, people in power do not believe in equality, at least in the United States, in the political and in the economic sphere. They believe in wealth and power. They believe in their own wealth and power. They're not thinking very hard about any of these issues. I haven't even noticed, I may be wrong, maybe President Biden said something about the earthquake, but I certainly didn't notice the United States mobilize any support at all. I didn't notice a pause in the war talk, which is nonstop, because that's all we hear. By the way, all we hear is war talk, and we don't hear any people talk at all right now in the US. The media, it's as if they were government mouthpieces. They behave that way. It used to be when I was young, the media were out to poke at the government all the time, which was quite good. When I was young, the New York Times published the Pentagon Papers, which talked about all the lies of the US government in Vietnam, and it published all the exposés about Watergate and so on. Now, you can't find a word against official opinion not a word. They don't care. Last week, we had our greatest investigative reporter of my lifetime, Seymour Hersh, publish a really remarkable piece about how the US blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. So it's really worth everybody reading because it's a very detailed account and it's very accurate. It's correct. You know what the New York Times said about the article? Nothing. It didn't even mention it, not even to dismiss it, because now it's just a mouthpiece of the US security state, and so that runs against the official discourse. So the problem is people are not asked what they want. If people are asked what they want about Ukraine war, they want it to stop. So they're not asked. There's no debate. There's no discussion right now. And if you're like me, opposed to what the US government says, you can't get in the media at all right now in the US. They will cut you off, stop you, period. So the human side is really being suppressed right now, because what does the vast majority of people want? They want their children to be safe. They want their children to be in school. They want to have access to health care. They want to have enough food to eat. They want someone to come help them if there's a terrible tragedy like this horrible earthquake, which was a mega 7.9 earthquake. They want help. That's what everybody wants, except if you're the tiniest elite. So the other inequality that we have, which is really, to understand it, there are only a handful of people that really know what's going on with this war in Ukraine. Almost everything that's said is lies. I know it, okay? So the inequality of information is unbelievably high. The inequality of power is even greater because the whole world's survival is in the hands of a few people right now. A few people. That's unlike any other time of history. We depend on a few people for the survival of the planet right now. This is crazy. And the public's not asked at all. And I know a lot because I hear a lot, I see a lot, I've been around a lot, and I know how much lies there are, and I know how a security state lies to its public and lies to the people, so we can't even make assessments right now. and a congressman wrote to me, said, no, Seymour Hersh told a lie about Nord Stream. I said, no, I'm sorry, the administration told a lie to you, Congressman. You weren't told the truth, which is really the truth. So this is the drama that we're in right now. What Graça Machel said, I want to underscore as a professional, practicing, qualified economist, okay, which I still am, actually, which is the following. The world output right now is $100 trillion a year. So always keep that number in your head. The output of the United States alone is about $23 trillion. Everything we're talking about, having health care for all, oh, that might be another $50 billion or $100 billion, maybe, from if the rich countries would help the poor countries. That's 0.1% of the income of the world, or maybe 0.2% of the income of the rich countries. It's rounding error. The numbers that are thrown around, how much would it cost to have every child in school up through upper secondary school, which is SDG 4? Maybe the rich countries would have to put in an extra $50 billion a year. It's not, okay? Now, what do they actually put in? They go and they create something called Global Partnership for Education, and then they say, we'll give you $700 million. Everybody applauds. Look at how generous, how wonderful. And then there are hundreds of millions of kids not in school. But everyone's patting themselves on the back. We're so wonderful. We're taking care of our kids, SDG 4. It's all a bunch of nonsense. The money is there. It's in Southampton, believe me. Just spend one afternoon in Southampton. Walk around, this is, I don't know, it's the highest aspiration in life of people on Wall Street, is to have a place in Southampton with a wine cellar. If you ask, what is eudaimonia? What is the ultimate happiness? The ultimate happiness, it's to have a place in Southampton bigger than the one across the street. That's the ultimate happiness. The whole world is organized around that principle. It's weird, by the way. It's not even nice to be in Southampton, actually, in my view. I'd rather be here. Okay, so the point is, we've organized the world for a few people. We fake the numbers. We don't get the kids in school. We don't get the universal health coverage. We don't get the safe drinking water. We don't get the nutrition when the child's brain is developing at age 2, that there's enough nutrition. And then, well, I was going to say we wring our hands about it, but the US government, you will not even see the word Sustainable Development Goals come out of the mouths of US officials. And do you know, by the way, I'll tell you a secret if you promise to keep it in the room. In the US Treasury, they are basically under instruction not to use the phrase Sustainable Development Goals. You know why? Because some other country might mention it, and then they'd have to go to Congress. Congress is another thing altogether. Congress, because in Congress you have to buy 535 people. So it's a lot of rich donors that have to buy all 535 people. They don't like to buy them, and the people in Congress don't want to be under pressure that they have to give some money to poor people, because their donors don't want to do that. They want to be in Southampton that afternoon. So they don't even say the word Sustainable Development Goals in the US Treasury. And I love the US Treasury Secretary. She was my instructor 50 years ago. Professor Janet Yellen. She's wonderful. But the department, that's Wall Street. And so just take care what this is really like right now. We're not trying yet. We're 7 years into this. We're not trying. We're 75 years into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We're not trying. We're just not trying. It took me a long time to figure it out, frankly, because I was trained in that system. But you finally realize we're not even trying.
Well, let me tell you, Professor Jeffrey, among these facts are really sad facts. And we are here in the United Arab Emirates bringing world government leaders, private sectors, NGOs, social entrepreneurs, you name them, to really sit down, talk, discuss, and plan and design a happier future, not only for us in the region, not only for us in the Arab world, but also for the future of the world.
And you're doing a wonderful job, by the way, really a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
And many, many creative things that are really important to do. And let me give a positive side to this and a way forward, because there is a positive side to this. I want to just give a 2-minute history of inequality in the world. Roughly speaking, the world was kind of more or less equal up to around 1500 AD, because technologies were not so different anywhere, and there was a kind of equality everywhere. I would say if any place was ahead of the curve, it was China, which developed, especially during the Song Dynasty, lots of wonderful technologies, printing, and the compass, and ocean navigation, and gunpowder, but that was fireworks, and some paper currency, and many, many, many wonderful things, and Neo-Confucianism of the 10th century AD. Starting in 1500, for a lot of reasons, which you can read about in my new book, the West started its colonial period, and from what was rough inequality, some real inequalities started, especially the African slave trade and the colonization of the Americas, which was the beginning of a new kind of race inequalities that have been with us for 500 years since then. Those inequalities grew with European imperialism, but it was around 1800 that this took off incredibly, because that was the beginning of the industrialization. And that came to a small part of the world. So by 1850, Britain ruled the oceans and this part of the world, and it ruled India, and the European empires were dividing the whole world. And at the end of the 19th century, after the United States got done destroying its own indigenous populations, it wanted to join the imperialism in the rest of the world. And then, without elaborating, 50 years of European Civil War and Great Depression and every disaster imaginable. So at the end of World War II, and this is the point I was coming to, at the end of World War II, a new age really did begin. And it was an age of independence of most of the world from European imperial power. And the main thing that changed, by the way, from before 1950 and after 1950 was children started to go to school. Because in the imperial system, you did not educate children. That was dangerous. The British did not put local kids in school, except maybe a few. They did not, the Portuguese, the Spanish, because you didn't educate the colonial subjects. That was the fundamental point, because knowledge is power. And then after 1950, literacy began. And Africa's literacy in 1950 was about 15%. That's what 100 years of European imperialism meant. Because the whole idea was inequality. The whole idea was inequality. It was hierarchy, racial hierarchy and political hierarchy. So from 1950 onward, we've had a period of some equalization, because now there's mass literacy. This is the fruits of independence, of the end of European imperialism. We've had some places, we had China come from 200 years of unbelievable depredation from the outside, invasions and 2 opium wars and Japanese invasion, many other things, to recover to become a cornerstone of the world system, something that's quite wonderful in my view, because China should be there as a great civilization, which it is. We have the African Union now, incredibly importantly, coming together into a single union, which I think is the most important thing for Africa, because the colonial powers divided Africa into 54 separate countries, but Africa's the same population as China, the same population as India. It's just 54 separate countries, because those were the artificial lines drawn on the map by Italy, also Italy, but by UK, France primarily. Italy tried to get in a little bit into Eritrea and Ethiopia, and Spain and Portugal and so forth. So now Africa's coming together, and if it succeeds in this, 1.4 billion people in a significant market of several $1 trillion. That's a big, important, positive deal. So my view is we are potentially, truly in an age of a great geopolitical breakthrough, where the Arab region, the African Union, a Latin American Union, in Asia would reestablish not a North Atlantic system run by the US and Europe, but a world system in which everybody has their place. That would be a world of equality. You know who doesn't like that? The US. They're supposed to be the world leader for another 50 years at least, because they were told in 1941, this is the American century, and by their count, still not over. And so this is what we're really facing. Do we want a true system of global equality in which every region can shine, or a divide and conquer world? And I keep telling my friends in Asia, in Japan and Korea and China, whoa, if you guys get together, that's a powerhouse, but the US wants to keep you split. Well, that makes no sense. Same here. Join together, it's a powerhouse. But if you're fighting each other, that's the dream of the former empire. So this is really the story, in my view, which is unite, take the place on the world scene, demand an end of what have been 500 years of inequalities, insist that it cannot be right, by the way. This is a message for all non-nuclear powers to all nuclear powers. We cannot have the survival of the world in the hands of a few people.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a lovely, exciting, and literally fireside chat with Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.